Welcome to the beautiful Hampton, Georgia, where the area Lodgebox inaugural season opens its playoff run at the home of Atlanta Motor Speedway. I'm Eric Wineland saying welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Lodgebox series, race number 1 of the postseason here from the 1.54 mile quad oval, Atlanta Motor Speedway. In the sim, this surface has not been repaved since the 90s. We're getting to see a lot of tire fall off before they finally update it on iRacing here in just a few months' time. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to welcome in my second man tonight, Jacob Bell. Welcome back to the booth with me here for the opener of the Lodgebox Series playoffs.
Well, I appreciate it, Eric. Nice being back. Happy to watch this race tonight. We got 23 drivers, it looks like. So half of our drivers tonight in the playoffs to talk about the top 12 guys, and we see a lot of them kind of sprinkled throughout the field. I think this racetrack's a lot of fun, mile and a half, and it's going to produce a great race tonight.
As always, Atlanta, one of the best for racing, not only for racing each other, but racing the racetrack. On the left side with the graphics, you will see drivers' names highlighted in yellow. They are the playoff drivers that you see in the middle graphic here. Looking at our playoff grid, Cameron Hearn, with his 5 wins this season, Jacob Bell has himself quite a few playoff points, but that cut line, there's a tie. And coming into this first round, it's going to be tight to try to make sure you advance to the second round.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at second place all the way down to 9th place, only 9 points separating those guys, and that's going to be the definitely the spot to watch out for. Chris Sidefied in the 54 is the bubble driver. Jeez, but he's tied there with Trader, the 9th place guy. So, like you said, definitely something to keep our eye on. And then I think anybody in this top 12 could come out and win tonight's race.
Well, Jacob, these guys have quite the beast in front of them in Atlanta Motor Speedway. 24 degrees of banking in the corners and a lot of tire fall off. Just what is going to be the key to victory for one of these playoff drivers tonight?
I think it's going to come down to playing the strategy right. We saw it last night, that caution coming out with about 25 laps to go. It really kind of set everybody off of the strategy that they were anticipating. The race going green, a lot of people had already came down and put 2 sets of tires on their race cars. So tonight, I think that's going to be something to watch out for. 3 tire sets in the pits for these guys. How do they manage it, and when do they decide to put them on?
Something we'll be keeping our eye on throughout the night. Welcome our third member of the broadcast team, the mastermind behind One to Go Studios and bringing you these great pictures on the Area iRacing Twitch channel, Harold Darner. Harold, you've watched the Swift Lifestyle Series and the Northern Capital Truck Series the previous 2 nights. What are we expecting in terms of raciness out of these Xfinity cars at Atlanta?
Well, we saw the ARCA cars start off with, seeking to the low side, and then they kind of went all the way to 4 wide, had a lot of good action in the last couple nights of racing. So we could go 4 or 5 wide around the corners. They are big enough, but you see these drivers have to get into a tempo early on and then let the track play out and the strategies play out. And like Jacob said, I think the big thing here is when do you pit to take tires, and how is that going to advantage you? We had one driver yesterday trying to stretch out the fuel run. Looked like he had a good 8 seconds over the field because he didn't have to pit, so he's going to cut in one less pit than anyone else. But these corners can get tight, and it gets hot. As we even said, we're in track on March the 1st, and I believe we're already showing heat in the track. We'll double check with the weather here.
Hey, we'll get a hold of our Lottie'sTravelWorld.com weather for tonight's event. Mostly cloudy skies. Track temperature just shy of 90 degrees at 89 right now. Air is at 77. Humidity 58%. Winds out of the north at 5 miles per hour. Gonna affect these drivers just a little bit in the corners. Not really gonna see too much there. The main thing, as Harold Darner was saying, is that track temperature and how it plays into the tire fall off for these drivers tonight. And we already see, Jacob Bell, that in practice, there are multiple grooves here at Atlanta.
Yeah, it's something we've seen in practice. It's something we saw pretty much all week long. We even had that epic 4-wide move on Monday night, but you can use the top here. You can use the middle lane. You can use the bottom. It's all pretty much at play for these drivers tonight. And I think it's going to be, very important to see when you get those tires on and what groove you can make work. A lot of times we see when the tires start to fall off, you kind of start sliding further and further up the track. So we'll see if that stays course tonight and how these guys are able to manage all of that. And on top of that, the playoffs and trying to figure out who's going to move on to the round of 8.
So far in practice, Chris Seidenfaden, your leader, turned a 31-17 out there on the track. Vern Hawkins trailing him, as well as James Scioli showing his pace on a track that is not a road course. He told us 2 weeks ago, after the conclusion of Watkins Glen, that he wanted to pick up his pace on the ovals. Proved that last week at Charlotte with a great run, and he's backing it up again here at Atlanta. We pick up Chris Seidenfaden, one of your playoff drivers. So Jacob Bell, you notice something different about every single playoff driver compared to the rest of the competitors.
Yeah, they got, well, first off, you mentioned the yellow names on the scoring pylon on the left, but in addition, they also have that green spoiler on each and every one of their race cars, as well as the green windshield banner, kind of indicating that these guys are in the playoffs, allows the guys who aren't in the playoffs to differentiate between their competition tonight. So definitely a benefit, and I want to give a special shout out to James Shanewell for helping set those up as well. But looks cool on the broadcast, and it's going to look cool behind the driver's seat to see your own name in green there, and got your spoiler green, so you know that you're one of the top 12 guys out here.
And already some calamity off of turn 2 as well. Quite a bit of that seen so far. There was Connor O'Kresick sitting on the middle of the back straightaway in front of Chris Seidenfaden as Chris was turning laps. Alan Elwood spinning through the grass. What's it going to take, Jacob, for a playoff driver below the cut line to make sure that they advance to the second round?
I think it's really just about not making any mistakes. We saw it on Monday night, and I hate to keep referring back to the previous 2 races, but it's really a good baseline to go off of. Monday night we had tons of the playoff guys have issues, whether they were caught up in an accident, whether it was a pit road speeding penalty, or even last night, whether it was an on-track penalty that was issued. As long as you can keep your car clean and you can finish the race with no major issues, I think that'll help shape you into that top 8 to hopefully advance next week at Richmond. But tonight, it's definitely going to be about not making any mistakes, especially no critical mistakes that could put you behind the game.
One of the best on mile and a halves through this season has been Cameron Hearn, currently P8 on your leaderboard. With 5 wins on the season and already a bank of playoff points, well, I'll flip the script here, Jacob. What's Cameron? Is he just going to breeze on into the round of 8?
I wouldn't say he's going to breeze on in, but definitely having, I think it was 30 playoff points, Eric, that he's coming into tonight with. That's a good heap of points to really help alleviate any major mistakes or anything that happens to that 15 to Cameron Hearn tonight or maybe next week at Richmond. So I think the game plan for him is really to go out there and just try to not make any critical errors that's going to cost you that 30-point buffer. You want to try to keep it, especially heading to a short track like Richmond next week. But if I'm Cameron and I have an opportunity to win, I definitely want to take advantage of that, try to add another 3 playoff points to the bucket for the next round, and obviously would just automatically clinch your way into the next round as well with a win. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how Cameron's able to manage it, but he's kind of one of the lucky ones that comes in with a lot of playoff points tonight.
The Infinite Motorsports Ford Mustang taking some laps here in early or happy hour practice before qualifying. Valley, South Carolina, pretty much, I believe, would call this track his home track. Pretty much the closest we get to him on the calendar for the Lodgebox series. Just 45 seconds remaining in practice. Michael Larch, a playoff driver who won last week at Charlotte and said, to heck with scoring points to get myself in, I'm going to win, has cracked the top 3, now sitting second on the leaderboard there. Actually, identical lap time to Vern Hawkins in third. One to keep your eye on from Mantua, Ohio. Track racer Chevrolet Camaro. Number 6 of Michael Larch.
And that was an epic win last week for Larch. He kind of came out of nowhere there, Eric, at the end. Like we talked about earlier, the tire sets and managing them was going to be crucial tonight. Well, it was crucial last week at Charlotte at another 1.5 mile racetrack where he was one of the few that had that extra tire set at the end. He was able to put them on and then cruise to victory lane as it looks like practice is winding down.
Varney, the flag man, waving the checkered flag on practice. All drivers returning to the pits so we can start qualifying. And Harold Darner, I'll come back around to you. You were able to watch qualifying, of course, the past 2 days. Lap 1, lap 2, what are we looking at here for the drivers taking their times?
Well, the trucks, because they could just wind out all the way around here, they were dealing it with like super speedway by taking that first lap all the way up against the fence and then coming down to take the low line around for lap number 2. So I would say if everything goes the same way, we're going to see the second lap being the fastest lap on all qualifiers.
Qualifying underway. First 2 hitting the track. Ed Robertson in the 64, the 84 of Forrest Smith. We'll pick up Ed Robertson in the 64 here as he barrels down the back straightaway into turn 3. So Harold says first lap up high, and Ed Robertson immediately on that top seam through turns 1 and 2 with the number 64 Northern Capital Chevrolet Camaro. One of the premier partners of Area iRacing right there, Northern Capitals. Huge shout out to Russ and Steve Anderson from Northern Capital for their support of the inaugural season of the Area iRacing League and all 4 series, but especially the Northern Capital Truck Series that runs every Tuesday night. They help to be able to let us put on the show for all that attend. Ed, lap 2, running the top side through 1 and 2, now to the bottom through 3 and 4. He doesn't quite get to the line at the bottom of the racetrack, up off the corner. The first timed lap that he wants to have matter. The 31.43 puts him second on the board currently. Alan Balancino to the top of the board and 31.425. Excuse me, 3.85. It just ticked over on my scoring pylon. Balancino, your fastest from Robertson. Forrest Smith puts in a 4.37 just ahead of Michael Larch. We pick up Kyle Sieg. Yes, the Kyle Sieg that will be running Select Xfinity Series races this year, Jacob Bell. Cool to see that he gets to do the thing every Saturday, or some select Saturdays in the real world, and he loves spending time with us here in the sim as well.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that with Kyle. He's a longtime buddy of mine, but it's awesome that he's able to get the opportunity. Looks like this qualifying lap might not count here. But cool to see him get the opportunity to run more Xfinity races in the real world, as you said, next season. I know he's going to be running Daytona, and anything can happen there. So it's awesome to see that for him, and awesome to see him running here on Tuesdays as well. Or excuse me, on Wednesdays.
Garrett Grant, one of the fastest in last night's Northern Capital Truck Series race, especially on the long run, out here for his qualifying attempt. Working his first lap. Jacob Bell, go ahead, and the second lap is looking like the one that is going to be the money lap. Take us for a lap and a ride with Garrett Grant.
Yeah, and I think it was because a lot of what we saw right there in lap 1, he used the high line coming through turn 3 and 4. Try to build up as much momentum as possible in these race cars to set yourself up for lap 2, and you see him already kind of dropping a little bit lower in turn 1 and 2, using that middle lane to still get a solid run down the back straightaway as he heads down into turn 3 and 4. A lot of speed still in this number 5 car, but you see the difference in line. He's on the bottom side of the racetrack this time on his money lap versus running up high to try to build up the momentum. It's going to come down to the stripe for Mr. Garrett Grant, and he's going to go to the top of the charts at 31.338 for the number 5.
New Albany, Indiana driver puts himself on the pole presently. Alan Elwood just clocks in right behind him at a 31.342. 2 of your playoff drivers controlling the front row. We get to see The in-sim shot of Andrew Player is always just snuck. What a feel-good story, Jacob Bell. Just snuck himself into the playoffs last week at Charlotte.
And he was running around, Eric, with a car that was pretty much supposed to be heading to the garage, but stayed on the racetrack, and that's why every single point matters. A couple incidents with some of the competitors that happened and brought out some late race cautions. It benefited him, and he was able to sneak into the playoffs with a resounding, I think, 17th place finish, maybe one lap down?
He was 28 seconds behind the lead, still on the lead lap. Managed to catch the break and be on the lead lap, where a lot of drivers ended up a lap down with a yellow in the final pit cycle. And with no hood on his car, he qualified for the playoffs on points last week at Charlotte. His qualifying attempt here, a 31.489 for his first timed lap. Puts him currently 14th on the board. You see him climb off of turn 2, down the back straightaway. See how his head tilts so much like any other driver, except he also turns because that VR headset lets him spot his apex a little bit better through the corners. Off of turn 4 to the start finish line. Andrew Player slots in 14th still. 31.454 will be his best time. New driver at the top of the board, Nicholas Trader, and now we get to see the man who has the greatest driving face, I think, in all of area iRacing, Jacob Bell, David Weishart.
Yeah, and he goes to the top of the charts with it, too, a 21.260. An insanely fast lap there by Weishart. He beats second place by over half of a tenth right there on his quick time. But yeah, Weishart giving us his onboard camera. I'm sure he's pretty happy with that lap time. The Samson Motorsports driver, he's going to go to the top of the charts, and we're seeing now Colin Fambro in the number 24, one of the most beautiful paint schemes in this series as well. He's going to start his qualifying run.
Elwood Designs providing the paint for Colin Fambro. Got to see that one in its production stages, courtesy of my team boss, Alan Elwood at VRA. Colin quietly making a name for himself, Jacob, in the area iRacing league across all the series. I should say he doesn't run ARCA, but last night in the Northern Capital Truck Series, he was pretty darn fast, and getting to see what he can do here in the Lodgebox Series. I know we called his name quite a bit last week at Charlotte.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's kind of taking those baby steps to get closer and closer to the front of the field. I believe he kind of joined us on the back half of this season, but the last few races, like you said, we're starting to talk about him more and more as he goes to second in the qualifying order as well. We're starting to talk about him more and more, and he also has had a few chances to maybe grab a victory. We saw it at Charlotte in the Truck Series race, competing for the win with Garrett Grant. Tonight, he goes to second in the charts for the Lodgebox Series.
So currently on the front row with provisional pole sitter David Weishart, here comes James Scioli, one of your faster drivers in practice, on his second lap here through 3 and 4. Looks like that first seam is that preferred lane through 3 and 4. To the start finish line comes the 7. He's going to go to the front row 31.267, 7 thousandths of a second short of provisional pole sitter Weishart. Goes James Scioli. But I don't think Jacob Bell, he'll scoff at a front row start for tonight. One driver left, still turning time, is the 44 of Travis Beckner.
You're going to notice, Eric, the last few qualifiers we've seen that went out later on in this session qualified second and third, and James Scioli and Colin Fambro. Do you think maybe that has to do with that sun going down and maybe that track temp possibly decreasing just slightly? Is that the advantage there, or they just happen to put up some pretty fast laps?
Down 3 degrees from the practice session. So 86 on the track right now. And Beckner's time, slowest of all drivers that have turn time, a 31.792, leaves him 20th on the board. 3 drivers choosing to not take time tonight. Brian Dixon in the 33, 19 of Rick Christensen, and the 34 of Dean Gagliano. So it looks like race control is going to start the brief drivers meeting before heading to the grid. So we can call David Weishart your pole sitter for the first race of the Lodgebox Series playoffs. Your full grid coming up here in just 40 seconds once they get the session turned over to the gridding period. And a big opening statement for David Weishart with that pole run.
Absolutely. That's how you get your playoffs started. You go out your first qualifying session of the playoffs and you put it on pole. Can't start too much better than that for Mr. David Weishart in the number 2.
One we'll be talking about is the guys that did not end up being toward the front of the grid. Drivers like Michael Larch and James Shanewolf, 18th and 19th on the grid coming up. They're going to have to work their way from the back. And Jacob Bell with Atlanta, the way it is, I feel like that's going to be a tough task without the help of some yellows.
Yeah, the cautions are going to be key tonight, and we've already touched on it a bunch, but those tire sets mixed in with the cautions and when they end up flying, that's going to be critical to the outcome of this race.
Let's go ahead and bring you your Lodgebox Series starting grid for the playoff opener at Atlanta Motor Speedway. David Weishart in that number 2 Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet Camaro will start from the pole. James Scioli, a road course ringer saying I got pace on the ovals, is backing that statement up with an outside front row start. Colin Fambro will roll off from 3rd with Nicholas Trader to his outside, and 4th Garrett Grant and Alan Elwood make up row number 3. Cameron Hearn, a 5-time winner this season, with Connor O'Kresick, also a winner this season, in row number 4. And rounding out your top 10, Shane Theron starting 9th, and Vern Hawkins from the 10th spot.
Few playoff drivers starting outside the top 10, but row 6 is where we're going to find Alan Balancino and Jordan Martin. Solid qualifying effort for both of those drivers. Then we got the row of playoff drivers in row 7. Kyle Sieg to the inside, Ed Robertson to his outside. Forrest Smith is going to roll off 15th in the number 84, and Chris Seidefeiden is going to roll off 16th. More playoff drivers in row 9 is where you're going to find Andrew Player and Michael Larch. And then rounding out our top 20 starters, James Shanewolf and Travis Beckner.
Brian Dixon, Rick Christensen, and Dean Gagliano make up the final 3 places on the grid, choosing to not take times as you see them roll off past us here on screen. Those 3 starting from the back of the grid tonight and seeing what they can do without qualifying times, hoping to avoid some potential early incidents. Yes, absolutely. Great production work from One to Go Studios right there, getting us some awesome angles for tonight's event. Harold Darner working the magic in the background, and we'll come to him from time to time for pit road updates as well. Final thoughts, Jacob, before we see the green flag. What do some of these guys need to do if they want to advance?
I'd be careful with these starts and these restarts coming up. We saw some tire spin last night. Something to keep your eye on here as we take the green flag.
The slate of the first 12 races of the season wiped clean. Playoff points handed out. Now it's time to get the Lodgebox Series playoffs started. The iRacing Mustang pace car will make its left-hand turn off of turn 4 right here and release the field into the hands of the number 2 of David Weishart. Neon car on the bottom. Green flag in the air. We are racing in the Lodgebox Series playoffs. David Weishart will lead the first lap from the pole. Scioli close in tow through turns 1 and 2. Single file for the first 5. Now 6 cars. Make that 7 now as O'Kresick sliding backward off the start. Cameron Hearn side by side. Now O'Kresick to the inside of Alan Elwood. That battle is for 5th. And the 49 of Alan Elwood kind of going the wrong direction right now off of turn 2. He loses a spot to O'Kresick. Now he loses a spot. Oh, sideways there for I believe that's Ed Robertson in the 64 that just got wayward off of turn 2 and able to make a save, but he will lose time.
Yeah, and he gets put right back in the middle of this Hornets nest outside the top 10. You got Kyle Sieg there. Then behind him, Jordan Martin, Chris Seidefeiden. You mentioned Ed Robertson with the slide off of turn 2. He's getting passed now by the 38 of Shane Theron.
And already basically every lane through the corner being utilized by these Lodgebox Series drivers. Chris Seidenfeld to the outside of Jordan Martin will use the momentum of the top side to make him, or help him make that pass. He pushes Kyle Sieg out ahead. Meanwhile, Theron side by side with Robertson. This battle for 13th.
You're really seeing these guys, like you mentioned, Eric, they're using the top of the racetrack. They're using the bottom. They're still trying to search for where they think they can roll around the quickest. I don't know if there's one definitive answer yet, but so far it's looking like the inside line's the place to be.
You were running the Northern Capital Truck Series race yesterday, Jacob Bell. Just how different was utilizing the bottom from the top of the racetrack and how it made the car feel?
You know, I think it really matters once the tires start to wear off. As we see James Scioli looks like maybe making a peek to the inside of turn 1 here with David Weishart. But once those tires start to wear off, you get a lot more comfortable running higher up on the racetrack that you might slide up into the outside walls. So I think at the beginning of the run, you're going to see everybody down low like we see now. But the later on we go, the higher up they'll get.
Skyholy chopping the nose there of Colin Fambro as the battle for second intensifies. Sliding back, meanwhile, 2 wide, looking almost 3. Alan Elwood trying to make some moves after losing some places. He's actually going to lose a couple more. Chris Seidenfaden in the 54 and the 41 of Vern Hawkins to his outside.
Yeah, we see race leader David Weishart migrated to the top.
Sideways goes to the 83 of James Shanewoolf, and he hangs on to it just like Ed Robertson. The 83 of Shanewoolf for a ride. He'll lose spots through 3 and 4.
And it's teammates, the 83 and the 64, who had the exact same slide with the exact same incident off of turn 2 in just a handful of laps. So Northern Capital right now not looking too sharp other than race leader David Weishart.
Shanewoolf now back to 20th. He basically the back of the grid will have to work his way back up through the field. Meanwhile, Cameron Hearn to the inside of Chris Seidenfaden, or should I say Seidenfaden and Hawkins going to the outside of Hearn. These two just passing Elwood 2 laps ago, then the 49. Now they're working the 15 for the 6th position.
It looks like another battle, too, right in front of them for second between the Colin Fambro machine and the 7 of James Scioli. Fambro finally going to get around the 7 as they enter the corner, but the run on the top for James Scioli is going to allow him to prevail down the back straightaway.
Already 10 laps into a run. Harold Darner, I know you were working the calculator pre-race. Just how far do we expect these guys to go under green flag conditions?
Well, with pen and paper, we're talking 40 to 44 laps is the most on fuel. Look at these guys to break this up to get the most advantage out of the 3 sets of tires they have on pit lane.
4 total sets, so they're going to break the race up into quarters, according to Harold Darnold, is what we're expecting here in the booth. Look for, with a 130 lap race, Jacob Bell, pit stops happening right around, let's say the 30 to 40 lap mark.
Yeah, I think on the early end, lap 30, the later end, maybe lap 40, like you said there. Our Harold saying even lap 44 if they really try to stretch it, but he also made the great point that it's going to be about managing the tires. We've said it all race long. We've said it all broadcast long. So I agree with both of you guys. I'm going to try to chop this race up into quarters. I expect to see him on pit road as early as lap 30.
Fambro choosing to settle his charge for second for now, back behind Scioli. Meanwhile, distinct lines being run right here. The top 4 on the bottom. Nicholas Trader, Chris Seidenfaden leading the charge on the outside. Vern Hawkins has decided to not push Chris Seidenfaden anymore. He's making a move for the 6th spot on the 54.
Kind of interesting. You look at the top 6, only 2 playoff drivers, and the 2 of David Weishart, our leader, and the 56 of Nicholas Trader, who we're watching right now. Scioli, Fambro, Okresic, those 3 guys are awfully fast, just not happen to be in the playoffs. Looks like Hawkins actually might have hit the wall right there in the middle of turn 1 and 2, and he's going to drop back a few spots.
3 wide off of 2. Hawkins getting gobbled by Hearn. Elwood choosing to back out of it. While only the top 5 are 2 playoff drivers, basically 7th through 9th is playoff drivers. Now with Hawkins sliding backward, that's going to change. Hearn to the inside of the 41, down here into turn 1, using the bottom side of the racetrack to make this pass, and Hawkins up on the wall even more.
It's the exact same place he hit it last lap. This time he set it, got into it a little bit harder there in the middle of 1 and 2. He's going to be going the wrong direction, and as soon as you get any little bit of damage on the right side of these race cars, it's really just not a fun race after that. And 2 substantial hits for the 41 of Vern Hawkins is going to have him going the wrong way.
Just that loss of side force with the side of the car being flattened does not help the race car aerodynamics whatsoever. Ed Robertson now working by Hawkins, now the 6 of Michael Larch to the bottom. Meanwhile, for the 7th spot, Cameron Hearn around the outside of Chris Seidenfaden. Now Seidenfaden losing time to Alan Elwood, the 49, to the bottom of the racetrack for a pass for 7th. Meanwhile, out front, David Weishart enjoying an 0.8 of a second lead over James Scioli, still riding in 2nd. Colin Fambro in 3rd. Just ahead of our picture. Then Okresic, Trader, Hearn right there in the middle of our screen. Meanwhile, Alan Elwood is still working on Chris Seidenfaden over here into turn 3.
Notice in the 15 of Cameron Hearn, who did not start probably as high up tonight as he would have wanted to or liked to. He started in the 7th spot, actually, but he's still kind of one of those guys who looks like he's creeping up his way closer to the race leader, David Weishart. It's got a lot of speed in that 15. It's going to be interesting to see how he's able to manage it.
Trader working the inside of Okresic, kind of pushed him up the hill a little bit. And Connor's going to slam the door on him. Nicholas sideways off of turn 4 opens the door to the outside for Cameron Hearn. The 15 looking to make a pass on the 56 for the 6th spot. Or excuse me, 5th spot. He'll roll the top side with the momentum and the wearing out of the tires Jacob Bell talked about at the top of the broadcast. Looking to come into play with a lot of drivers starting to migrate up toward that top seam.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I was going to say, meanwhile, at the back here for the 15th position, the Hornets' nest has not gotten any better.
Yeah, I was going to touch on right around lap 20 is when we see those tires really start to fall off, like you mentioned, and that's why we're seeing these guys kind of go higher up. But Vern Hawkins, we've seen him hit that outside wall twice already in turn 1 and 2, and it's not scared him one bit. He's going right back up against it again.
Oh, in the wall with contact from the 44 of Travis Beckner. Vern Hawkins in the wall even harder, and that's seriously going to damage that 41. May get a chance to look back at that in a few moments as Forrest Smith works to the bottom of the 41. Meanwhile, playoff drivers starting to work their way forward. The 6 of Michael Larch, the 64 of Ed Robertson at the back part of the top 10 have now caught have caught Chris Seidenfaden, haven't gone anywhere yet. Kyle Sieg to the outside through 3 and 4 is going to pick up the 10th spot from Michael Larch. And mentioning tire fall off, fastest lap turn in the race so far, you saw in the top right as it happens when it flashes. Ed Robertson, a 31.527, their last time by for your leaders on our scoring pylon. The last laps turn 32.96 for David Weishart out front, so already a 1.5 seconds of tire fall off through 20 laps.
You know, Weishart's been the guy out front, but Scioli has not let him get away one bit. And running that bottom line, which is the opposite of what we see the race leader doing, I think it's allowing Scioli to really start to close in and then kind of use the draft on the straightaways to minimize that run that Weishart's getting from using the top side.
James just 0.6 of a second behind our leader, David Weishart. 3 wide across the quad oval back here for the 15th position. Balancino, Shane Theron, Jason Martin, the 70, 02, and 38, all mixing it up. Looks like it's sorted out with the 38 choosing to stay behind the battle right now. And Kyle Sieg to the bottom of Chris Seidenfaden. His run is not done. This is your battle for 8th.
You know, Kyle has been another one of those guys who seems like he's getting a little bit stronger as this season's gone on. With the call last week to stay out at Charlotte, maybe trying to do something opposite. He almost slides up in front of Chris there, but that 39 car, he's been heating up lately, and he's in the playoffs now, so it'd be interesting to see what he can do for these last 5 races of the season.
Kyle's last 5 finishes, only 1 top 10, and that was last week at Charlotte. So he's gotten himself righted if you consider that his last race was a top 10, but before that, 16th, 14th, 12th, 16th, looking all the way back to the Daytona Road Course in the Lodgebox Series at the start of December.
Well, he's had a lot of speed in the car. I'll put it that way. Maybe not necessarily the finishes have reflected it, but I felt like we've started to see his name towards the front of the field a little bit more often as of late.
Absolutely. If you look at his starting positions, Jacob Bell.
There we go.
Starts inside the top 10 in every one of those aforementioned last 5 races, except for Darlington back on the 8th of December, where he started 12th, just outside the top 10. So Kyle Sieg does have the pace, may not have necessarily had the best of luck through the season. Meanwhile, a driver who has found victory lane a couple times this season, Cameron Hearn, ahead of Nicholas Trader. And miraculously enough, Jacob, Cameron Hearn does not have the best average finish among drivers that have started 10 races this season. 10 or more races this season.
So who would that be with the best average finish?
That would belong to the guy out front, David Weishart, in the number 2. Average finish of 5th. Cameron Hearn's average finish 7th. If you do some rounding.
I think a lot of that with Cameron is like almost the checkers or wreckers. Like he wins or he gets marred in some kind of issues. Kind of what happened to him yesterday.
Hey, did commit a speeding penalty entering pit road for the first round of green flag stops yesterday in the Northern Capital Truck Series playoff opener. Cameron, not a playoff driver in that series, is a playoff driver in the Lodgebox Series tonight. Meanwhile, off of pit road comes Brian Dixon. Long stop for him, 45 seconds sideways, and spinning off of turn 2 is the 5 of Garrett Grant, and there's not going to be a yellow flag. Our Wondigo Studios replay will work on finding that for you. So he's trailing his teammate, the 54 Seidenfaden, and also Michael Larch to his inside through the quad oval into turn 1. He goes to the middle. It looks like he's going to force a 3 wide issue here, Jacob Bell, and I don't think this is going to work right here.
Oh, yeah. Chris definitely came off the wall there off of turn 2 into his teammate, and just with the positioning, it slapped Grant right across the nose of Michael Larch and spun him around, so not a good playoff start either night for Garrett Grant in the Northern Capital Truck Series. He had that pass-through penalty, and then tonight he's in the wall early on lap 28.
And to give you an idea, Garrett's last lap now, that last full lap under full song is as fast as he can go, is trailing the leaders by almost a second a lap. So the 5 car in trouble, also 17 seconds off the lead. Meanwhile, out front, James Scioli, Jacob Bell, has tracked down our leader, David Weishart.
Yeah, and he's been doing it with the same method we talked about all race. He's been running the bottom through turn 1 and 2, whereas Weishart's been up high. And every time it looks like he's inching a little bit closer and closer as the laps are going on here. I do expect these guys maybe to be on pit road in the next handful of laps, but for the moment, we might have a battle for the lead between the 2 and the 7.
Scioli's last 3 finishes, excluding any super speedway or road course race. A 3rd at Darlington, a 2nd at Pocono. And then he was running super well at Charlotte last week until he got caught in some late race incidents. Finished 13th, but the 7 car showing his hand here at the ovals, in addition to backing up a 2nd place finish at Watkins Glen and a 3rd place finish at Daytona Road in the 2 road course races this season. But Jacob Bell, it's looking like David Weishart is kind of backing the rest of the field up into each other, as Colin Fambrough is not trailing James Scioli by much.
No, and it's allowed Nick Trader and Cameron Hearn to, like you said, just kind of logjam behind our race leader. We might have some pit stops coming up here shortly. I hear the radio getting a little bit busy. Wasn't exactly sure to hear who that was, but Eric, I think we might have some guys coming down. It looks like our race leader, David Weishart.
Weishart, the first to dip to pit road. Is he going to get it woed in time? The 2 has no black flag for him. The 7's going to be coming this time, according to the radio. The 13 of Andrew Player and the 44 of Travis Beckner also on pit road with your leader, David Weishart.
And it hands the lead over to Scioli, but you just mentioned it. He's going to be hitting pit road this time. Believe Colin Fambrough in the 24, it might be staying out. Looks like he's running low, though, like he might plan on also hitting pit road.
Almost contact there between the 24 and the 7. The 7's going to spin as he gets onto pit road, and he's hit the inside wall. James Scioli, heartbreak for the 7 car.
That's a killer for Scioli. He was having such a good race, and just one little mistake getting onto pit road, it looks like it's going to throw it all out the window.
And he has disconnected from the server. That's going to be the end of the night for the number 7. Talking about him, he's running so well, and unfortunately getting caught up in an incident. I'd love to see if we can potentially get a replay on that, see if the 24 did touch him through 3 and 4 there as James is trying to come to pit road.
You know, even if there wasn't contact, Eric, I wonder if just, him watching his mirror and seeing that 24 closing up quickly kind of threw him off and hitting his marks, getting down onto pit road.
Oh, so close. I don't know, Jacob Bell, that James got any help from Colin Fambrough, but I'm sure the scare in the mirror did not help.
Yeah, I think that could have been, even just something like that, because these guys are trying to get everything they can getting on and off pit road. You don't want to give up any time, and just something that throws off your marks just a little bit can result in an incident like we said. I don't think there was any official contact between the 2, but definitely ended the night for the 7 of James Scioli.
Great camera work there from our producer, Harold Darnell. Darner, excuse me. Not Darnold. Rick Christensen picks up a black flag on pit entry into 19. Meanwhile, Cameron Hearn, Colin Fambrough, and Connor Okrezik continue to stay on the racetrack. From 13th on back, those drivers have made pit stops. That would be David Weishart leading that group. And he's coming in a hurry. You see it at the bottom of the 15 goes the number 2. And now back on the lead lap. So split strategy here, Harold. Do you expect Cameron Hearn, Colin Fambrough, Kyle Sieg to try to run it dry and maybe make this a 2-stop race?
If they can get it up to 45, then they could keep that one tire, set in the back. But, that would be really stretching the fuel. Not sure. But Cameron did start mid to back pack, so could have saved some back there. I believe the reason why he really was back there was he had 2 incident points under qualifying, so I believe one of his laps did not count.
Great investigative work there from Harold Darner. Meanwhile, Connor Okresic, the 14, has peeled away from the picture. He has made his pit stop. Kyle Sieg now down pit road, as well as Vern Hawkins. They're going to go a lap down right here as the leaders work their way off of turn 4. Nicholas Trader in the 56, a lap down on fresh tires, now getting his lap back as he works by Colin Fambro, now working past Cameron Hearn. Fastest driver on track last lap, David Weishart with those fresh tires, trying to make up all the time he can.
I believe we got a call on the radio. Cameron Hearn might be coming in this time, Eric.
And off the banking to the pit road entry. Can he get on it cleanly this time? He marked improvement from last night. Cameron Hearn makes pit road, will get 4 fresh tires and fill it full of fuel. Releases Colin Fambro to the lead.
Walking through
Cameron Hearn looks like he's a little short of your strategy for 2 stopping there, Harold.
I believe he is short, but he may be banking on a caution or 2 to help him get the extra distance. Walking through the pit garage, looking at Scioli and Ballacino have put their race cars back in the hauler and have called it a night.
Scioli with that damage from spinning on to pit road. Meanwhile, Fambro, Elwood, Theron, Seidenfaden all choosing to come down pit road right here. Eventually, that will put David Weishart back in the lead after he passes these drivers as he comes off of turn 4. So a lot of time given up, Jacob Bell, by Fambro and others. Can they make that back up before the next pit cycle?
I don't know if they can, and especially if they're not able to make it on 2 stops the rest of the race. If they're going to have to come down 3 times like David Weishart and the rest of the field, I think you're better off just trying to split it equally. So I don't know if they're going to be able to make that time back up.
Looking at the calculator, 43, 86, 44 laps.
So right
It's gonna be close.
on the number.
Right on the number.
Right on the number, according to Harold. With green flag pit stops cycling through to the conclusion for this stint. I want to take a moment to say thank you to Swift Lifestyles. Fans, be sure to visit Swift Lifestyles website for clean supplements that help you improve your focus and gaming performance. Use discount code Area iRacing for 15% off of your entire order on the website. Special thank you to Swift Lifestyles for their support of all of us here at Area iRacing, and specifically the Swift Lifestyles Pro Series that runs every Monday night, the ARCA cars here on Area iRacing's Twitch channel. Again, that is Swift Lifestyles. At their website, use discount code Area iRacing for 15% off your entire order. Thank you to Swift Lifestyles. David Weishart continues to lead now from Nicholas Trader by 4.2 seconds. The driver trailing Weishart right there is the 83 of James Shanewolf. First car 1 lap down in the lucky dog position. Bad news for the 64 of Ed Robertson. Looks like he is going to packet loss out of the server, Jacob Bell, and that's another playoff driver having some bad luck.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough break there for the 64. It's going to put him all the way to the bottom of our leaderboard, so he's going to drop down to 21st now, just in front of James Scioli and Alan Ballacino. And for Ed Robertson, he didn't have a ton of playoff points coming into tonight, so that finish is definitely going to at least knock him outside of the top 8, and he's going to have to go to Richmond potentially in a must-win scenario. If not, he's going to have to need a lot of help to advance.
And under green flag conditions, he will lose laps at a quicker rate than if this incident were to happen, or this unfortunate luck were to happen under caution. So just a bad time there for the 64. Kyle Sieg working by Brian Dixon. Dixon a couple laps down having to fix some damage from earlier in the race. Sieg running in 7th is tracking down Travis Beckner in front of him, half a second up the road. At the front of our picture there is the 44. And at the back of our picture, Colin Fambro, the first one on super fresh tires, coming behind the 39.
Yeah, I'm curious to see just how much Fambro, Hearn, those guys that kind of stayed out longer, how much they're able to cut into that lead. And if they do, like Harold mentioned, try to make it a 2-stop race, it's going to be awfully close. Maybe a lap or 2 short here and there, but that's something that these guys could potentially save on that last green flag run. So a lot to keep our eyes out for in these last 80 or so laps.
And Jacob, I feel like this is probably going to be the most unique race of the week as compared to the ARCA cars, the trucks, and the Cup cars tomorrow night, in that the Xfinity has some of the highest horsepower motors in the league, but they have the least amount of downforce compared to the rest. Not a lot of grip these guys can lean on means a lot of tire fall off.
Yeah, and that's why you mentioned it, I think, on that first run, about 2.5 second difference from the quick laps to what they were running closer to their pit stop. So it's going to be something to watch, man. I think that's what we saw with Chris Sidefied and Garrett Grant's incident, where he went spinning down into the inside wall off of turn 2. It was just that tire fall off, man. It catches you at those weird times coming off the corner. The car starts pushing on you. You either get into the wall or you might get into somebody else and go around.
And with the added pressure of having to push it on older tires, can these guys that are trying just 2-stop this race instead of 3-stop be able to make something like a 2-stop work if they're losing more time?
You know, I think the only benefit to that is that when you're on these old tires and you know you have to save fuel, it really allows you to just roll the car more and not try to push it as hard. And it kind of works into your favor in terms of tire wear, as you see Kyle Sieg trying to work on Andrew Player here for the 5th spot. But because of that potential fuel strategy that those guys could be going and trying to save fuel, it might actually help them in terms of tire management towards the back half of that run.
Kyle Sieg working by the lap car of Andrew Player there. Alan Elwood now ranging up onto the back of the 44 of Travis Beckner. Beckner going the wrong way. Some of the oldest tires in the field currently. And number 44 slides behind the 49 now.
Player and Sieg was actually 4 position.
It was. Colin Fambro passed Andrew Player so fast, I did not recognize that. Because Colin Fambro was right in tow with Kyle Sieg there. I did not recognize that. Apologies. Thank you, Harold, for catching me on that one.
And it moves Sieg into the top 5, by the way, Eric. Sorry to cut you off, but this run that Sieg's having, he's going to have to try to make up some time, obviously, on these guys in front of him, but he's putting himself into a good enough position to where if he doesn't maybe get that win, he might still have a good enough point stay to put himself in a really good position for next week.
Kyle Sieg coming into the playoffs was the 11th seed, actually the 12th seed. He was tied with Andrew Player for the bottom of the playoff grid, and also James Shane Wolf. Those 3 just 4 points from the cut line. So Kyle Sieg's run tonight absolutely could catapult himself above that cut line. Now in the top 5, Colin Fambro still trailing just off his back bumper, 55 laps into this 130 lap affair at Atlanta Motor Speedway, virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. The only time in the Area iRacing League where we get to see good old legacy Atlanta repave, not too far away from the service. Atlanta gonna get those extra 4 degrees of banking and a brand new surface, nice and smooth. Gonna probably race like a super speedway is the assumption. I tend to think that the good old worn out surface, the better way to go around this racetrack. Jacob Bell, it just provides so much unique racing with every driver utilizing a different line.
Yeah, it's exactly what I said when we saw the 4 wide move Monday night with Paul Irvin making the squeeze and getting to the lead with an incredible pass. First thing I thought of, I told Harold was, man, it's going to be a shame not to see this track anymore after this season and this exact configuration. It's just been such a blast racing here and watching these tires fall off, and these guys have to willpower their race cars around the track.
Well, that's one thing you gotta say, and also as well is that with iRacing, they will most likely keep the Atlanta as a legacy track, so that drivers can go back to it. Several tracks: Daytona, Charlotte, Michigan, I believe Phoenix, a few others that are in legacy conditions to be. Texas has its legacy as well, so it'd be nice to be able to to reminisce and go back to the track in this configuration when you feel like it.
Something I liked about Texas was the fact that I liked the old legacy version better than the repave as well. And the higher banking through 1 and 2, being able to utilize the top side at Texas, not something you get to do too much now on the repave. Colin Fambro to the inside and making the move on Kyle Sieg for the top 5. Now 59 laps into the race, into their runs. Kyle Sieg last pitted 19 laps ago, Colin 16 laps ago, so 3-lap difference on those tires. Andrew Player sliding backward. Shane Theron working his way by him for the 8th position. Difference of 9 laps on tires between those two. And just ahead of Shane Theron, Alan Elwood in the 49 PPC Toyota Supra. Driver driving under the Virtual Racing Alliance banner, the team boss of VRA.
Yeah, I was going to mention we also had a pass for 3rd, and it's about to be a pass for 2nd. Cameron Hearn was over 9 seconds behind race leader David Weishart when he came off of pit lane. He's cut that down to 3.5 seconds. He got around Connor O'Kresick. Now he's working on Nicholas Trader for 2nd.
He's going to make quick work of that move for 2nd. Put Cameron Hearn up to the 2nd spot. Nicholas Trader back to the 3rd spot. Those drivers, a little bit of difference in those tires. And I don't know, Harold Darner, if you can pull it up for us. The onboard shot of David Weishart, I think, is going to be pretty interesting, because I swear when this car just barreled off into turn 1 this last time by me, he cut the motor off, or at least pushed the clutch pedal in.
Oh. I'm trying to figure out why he would even need to do that. I thought for sure he'd be on the 3-stop strategy.
A change in strategy, potentially. He's not doing it there, so perhaps it was a car around him, like Vern Hawkins or Garrett Grant.
Ooh.
You see him work by the lap cars finally there. And Jacob, I feel like they have cost him time to Cameron Hearn, Nicholas Trader, Connor O'Kresick chasing him from behind. Sideways for the 5 of Garrett Grant.
Yeah, I don't know if it was completely the lap cars or lap traffic there for Weishart, but just Hearn has caught him, like I said, from 9 seconds back down to 2.5. Obviously, the big tire advantage is the major key here for Cameron Hearn. I believe he pitted close to, 15 laps after David Weishart, our race leader? Maybe 10?
8.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even think it was actually 15 once I got to thinking about it, because it just shows you how much each and every lap matters with these tires. He's been able to make up such a big deficit with only 8-lap fresher tires.
The guys to watch are Fambro, Elwood, and Therian. All pitted 20 laps ago, 10 laps after David Weishart.
I'd even throw Cameron Hearn on that strategy, because he pitted 1 lap before Fambro, Elwood, and those drivers. So potentially Cameron Hearn on that same 2-stop strategy, whereas the rest of the field on the 3-stop. And something that I love about Atlanta as well, Jacob Bell, is just the distance of this race makes it so that you see both strategies, and we get, by the time all things are said and done, we get to see how they play out, and it's going to be interesting to see who can make up the time, either on old tires or on fresh ones.
Well, if you want my bold early prediction here, I just can't see the 2-stop strategy working out. I don't think they went long enough on that first run to be able to comfortably make it to the end. But hey, there's a good chance I'm wrong. So we'll see. It looks like Weishart's actually coming down now for his second stop.
Yep, it's basically time for him right at the halfway mark.
I was getting ready to say, we've hit the halfway mark. We were going to potentially try to get halfway through the field right there. but I think we'll hold off on that for a few moments as the pit cycle underway. Maybe we'll pick it up once they come out of the pit cycle. David Weishart to pit road, Andrew Player in the 13, Travis Beckner in the 44. Those three did pit the earliest last time out. They are pitting the earliest again on this sequence. Cameron Hearn, now your leader from Connor Okresic by just about 2 seconds. Now Okresic losing a spot to Nicholas Trader. And Hearn has a 3.4 second lead over Colin Fambro, the next driver we believe that can make the distance or one more stop in this race. Battle for second just now finally finishing. Okresic giving up the spot to the 56.
So working with our interactive Twitch chat, tires are king, which means, like Larch showed at Charlotte, having the pair in pit lane for a late race caution would be aces. Where some of these guys are trying to keep that one set in there. Otherwise, you're 10 laps, 12 laps left, and the caution comes out with no tires left. You have no chance.
Yeah, that's where I think the two-stop strategy could play out, because I just don't think under green flag they'll be able to stretch the fuel. But that caution comes out, they're in golden position, like you said.
Well, Harold did the numbers earlier, Jacob Bell. I will remind you on that one, and it's right on the money for the 24, the 49, and the 38. Meanwhile, we continue to watch Connor Okresic try to work his way by Nicholas Trader. These two on the same strategy. This is purely a race for track position. The 14 not giving an inch to the 56, trying to side draft him down the back straightaway into 3. He wants to slide job him. He's not going to be able to make it work. Here comes Trader to the outside.
Battling hard for second. Little wiggle there out of the 14 of Okresic. Nick Trader not giving it up whatsoever, though. He's going to hold him off for the moment.
There's the slide job from the 14. The 56 is going to get in the back of him. He shoves the 14 up the racetrack. Connor hangs on. And to the inside comes the 24 of Colin Fambro.
Wow.
What a move. And Colin slides up in front of Connor and checks him up. Nicholas Trader right on the rear bumper of the 14 yet again. If we still had a 5-hour energy move of the race, I might call it right there.
Yeah.
That move from Connor Okresic was incredible.
I don't know if I had slide job on my list tonight for moves that we would see at this track, but we saw it. And Okresic did it pretty well. I got to give him credit. He didn't move up too late. He had just enough space to make that move, and he made it work, and it looked good for him. He had to save it too a little bit, I think, from Trader. He wasn't too happy with it.
That was a battle for track position. Sliding onto pit road is the 14. They both come to pit road, so Connor getting ahead of Nicholas Trader might prove useful right there, as he has the track position advantage over the 56. Meanwhile, out front, Cameron Hearn still choosing to stay on the racetrack, as well as Colin Fambro, Kyle Sieg, Alan Elwood, Shane Thieren, your top 5. Ahead of Chris Seidenfaden, Michael Larch, Jordan Martin, and Nicholas Trader and Okresic on pit road. That's your top 10 currently. So we have 8 drivers choosing the long strategy, 2-stop strategy currently. Their next pit lap, Jacob Bell, looks to be in about 10 laps time if they can make it.
They're going to be trying to get this past 85. If they can get there, I believe they'll be comfortable enough to make it to the end. And they might need to conserve just a tad bit of fuel, but the guys, they've made their bed, Jake. They're going to lay in it.
Yep, they're going to have to lay in it 100%. And also, I mean, like you said, they got that extra tire set at the end. So either way, if it works out, great. If it doesn't and they get a caution, great. So not a bad call on their part whatsoever.
The pit road comes the 39 of Kyle Sieg. He's not going to be able to make it far enough. So he's choosing to just be on fresher tires later in the race. He'll have one more stop to make it to the end. And with no yellow flags, Garrett Grant is desperately trying to keep himself on the lead lap. He's actually just ahead of our leader currently with the damage on that number 5. Basically, all he can do, Jacob Bell, is try to keep himself where he needs to be and hopefully to catch a timely yellow, keep himself in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, and that caution would also allow him to get on pit road for an extended amount of time and get that damage fixed. So a lot on the line here for Garrett Grant as he's trying to hold off race leader Cameron Hearn, but definitely looking for an extended stop for Grant so he could get that car completely repaired and then maybe have a little bit more speed as well.
Give you a comparison here. Out of the guys that are still on the racetrack right now that have not pitted, fastest lap was turned by Chris Seidenfaden at a 31.567. And he last lap ran a 33.429. So about 2 seconds of tire fall off at the end of the run for these drivers is huge compared to those that have just stopped, such as David Weishart, well down in the 31-second bracket, now just cracking into the 32-second bracket, 10 laps on his tires. Kyle Sieg just set the fastest lap of the race at 31.442. That number 39 is flying around Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, he's got a lot of ground to make up for his strategy to work out as well. So a lot of different stops. And this is what I was talking about last night in our truck race. When you got so many different strategies, so many people on different laps on their tires, it can really get hectic out there because we just saw the speed difference. Like you mentioned, you know, these guys are going to have to navigate lap traffic. They're going to have to navigate people on fresh tires, on old tires. And it's just a lot to keep track of from behind the wheel.
Battle for third just changed hands. Chris Seidenfaden in the 54 making a pass on Alan Elwood. Seidenfaden now up the racetrack a little bit more than the 49. Shane Thieren in the 38 in that purple car just behind Alan Elwood. Michael Larch in 6th will be pitting this time, according to the radio. Allen checked up just a little bit, didn't quite get to the bottom with the dirty air behind the 54. He actually checks his teammate Shane Thieren up through 3 and 4. Right to the back bumper comes the 38. You wouldn't know it right there, but those two are teammates, and they're racing hard here for what is 4th on track, and potentially 4th effectively after we're all said and done toward the checkered flag. It all depends on drivers on the 3-stop strategy, whether they can make up the time, such as Connor Okresic, David Weishart, and others. How important would it be for Shane Thieren right here, Jacob, to get himself by Allen, not only for the track position, but for the final stint for these drivers coming up here with pit stops in 5 laps?
Well, I think we saw it with Okresic and Nick Trader just about 10 laps earlier, with Okresic throwing that slide job, like you said, on Nick Trader, getting in front of him before they hit pit road. It's actually netted him the spot and then some. Now Okresic has a position buffer between him and Nick Trader, so potentially the same situation there between Shane Thieren and Alan Elwood. Don't know if we'll see a slide job necessarily between the teammates, but I'm sure that 38 wants to get around him.
Ryan Dixon in the 33 on fresh tires coming by these drivers. You see David Weishart just work himself off of turn 2 behind them as well. That will be 4 positions on the racetrack. So if these drivers can stay out in front at the present moment and make their final stop, they're going to need to work really hard through that final stint to make sure they stay ahead of 2. So David making good time where he needs to be. He's currently 16 seconds behind your leader, Cameron Hearn, who's got James Shanewolf in the 83 still out in front of him. Garrett Grant did end up getting lapped by the 15. Andrew Player, another playoff driver, having himself quite a run. Currently 1 lap down. Now the lucky dog position as he passes the 83 who just came to pit road. He's going to work to try to get himself back on the lead lap the old-fashioned way. as he closes
Saw
on Cameron Hearn.
Saw an interesting tweet from Andrew Player last night talking about this week at Atlanta, saying he actually worked with Pro Series driver Zach Novak a little bit, got some coaching from him in preparation for Atlanta. Said it wasn't, a track he's super familiar with. He was pretty quick last night in the trucks. I mean, he's running 11th right now, make that 10th actually. So that coaching paying off for the 13.
And I think, Jacob, he utilized his sponsor very well. McConey Setup Shop has quite a driver lineup a driver coach lineup, I should say, to lean on in addition to their setups. And the number 13 representing McConey Setup Shops pretty well. Gagliano gonna try to get by Cameron Hearn as well and gain one of his 2 laps back. He's currently 2 laps down. And now 1 lap down. So the pit window opened according to Harold Darner for the end of the race. 45 laps to go right here at the start-finish line. Stint, Harold, I believe that these drivers went the first time around was about 44 laps, correct?
Yep, right now Cameron Hearn is working his 44th lap, which means he has the same left. So I would see him coming down probably this lap, and so he might need to save himself. Here he comes on down. If I were these drivers, if I got another lap, I want to use it just so that I could not have to worry about it. If I get a little bit of a buffer, and I think we're going to see that in Seidenfaden, Theron, and Elwood are going to continue to stay out there a little bit longer.
Am I allowed to change my opinion?
No, you're too late here, Jacob Bell.
What was that
opinion? You're too late. You can't just jump ship.
Guys. I think they're gonna make it. Actually, I changed my mind.
You can't. We cannot jump ship this late.
Well, we talked about that last night or earlier before we even went live today. That Vollmer tried this yesterday and almost pulled out a win where he'd only had a couple top 5s by splitting it up or keeping the tires out there longer. And I think I think some of these guys might have watched that and said, you know what, maybe we could do this and only 2 stops and be better off at the end.
Shane Theron on to pit road behind Colin Fambro as we watch him come down for what we assume to be 4 tires and fuel. We'll see the right side of the car get jacked up. Right side's going on the 24. Now around to the left sides. I wish iRacing would give us the pit crew animations. I'd love to see all the crew members running around the cars that come down pit road. Quick 4 tire stop for Fambro. My ticker says 14.4 seconds stationary from the time he was 0 miles per hour until he was not 0 miles per hour anymore.
That's for Fambro, 13.9 from what I saw, and his Alwood now down in pit lane. I believe it talked to a little bit of the few people in the iRacing that could make that happen. They are totally concerned about way too much packet loss with the pit crew over the wall.
Interesting note there, Harold. Thank you for the technical insight there. That's pretty interesting that trying to keep up that much data going across the server, I'm sure would be quite a burden to a lot of internet connections.
Well, and also the fact that if a lot of people who are watching who are not iRacers, that area right at the pit box is actually no man's land. You can actually drive all the way down pit lane through cars and not hit anything. That's why there's every league, including this one, you're not allowed to just do that. It really messes up drivers trying to hit the pit lane and hit their pit boxes because you end up obscuring their signs from their pit box. But, the iRacing decided at the beginning that they were going to leave those areas neutral to the point that cars could overlap and not have to worry about hitting each other at the pit box itself.
Interesting note. Well, with Alan Elwood closing out the pit cycle, now we'll get the chance to take you through the field here in the Lodgebox series, starting with our leader, David Weishart in the number 2 SimSpeed Shops Chevrolet Camaro from Fredericksburg, Indiana, trying to open his playoffs with a win. Qualified on the pole, fastest in practice, fastest currently on the racetrack. That's running the 3-stop strategy in this number 2. He's going to have to make up a lot of ground, though, on the 2-stop strategy, guys. I'm sure we will cover the conclusion of the difference in strategy later down the race. Behind David, the 14 of Conor O'Kresick, a winner this season at Nashville Super Speedway about a month ago, back in December.
See a little bit of the damage on that rear spoiler from that contact with Trader.
And the slide job that he threw, that move of the race, I'm coining it as Alan Elwood, a lap down, goes to his inside. Jacob Bell, you got more on our third place driver.
Yeah, Kyle Sieg, another one of those guys who's jumped on the 3-stop strategy train, and he's netted to a third spot right now, but it's going to be interesting to see where he stacks out with those guys on 2-stop strategy like Cameron Hearn when they get back up to the front of the field. But so far, a nice race for Kyle Sieg, which is exactly what he needed coming in as the 12th seed, trying to make the round of 8.
Driver from Springfield, Illinois, Nicholas Trader. The other end of the slide job move earlier in the race. One Mind 2 Design, Chevrolet Camaro of Trader currently runs in the 4th position on the 3-stop strategy. We'll be pitting here in about 5 to 10 laps time. Meanwhile, the first one on the 2-stop strategy, Cameron Hearn in the 15, the Infinite Motorsports Ford Mustang, currently riding 5th and already well ahead of a couple drivers on the 3-stop strategy, such as Andrew Player, Travis Beckner. Looking pretty good right now for the 15 of Cameron Hearn.
Andrew Player back here running 6th. Talked about his coaching he got with the McConey Setup Shop team and Pro Series driver Zach Novak this week. I think it's helped him quite a bit. He was fast in the Truck Series race tonight. Got a lot of speed as well in that number 13. We'll see how the strategy game plays out for him, as it looks like Garrett Grant, one of the lap guys, getting around him. Then right behind him, you got the 24 of Colin Fambro, the Elwood Designs paint scheme there on that Coors Light Toyota Supra. He's had a solid night. He's got 3 laps led, so we'll have to see what Fambro does as far as strategy. I believe he's on the 2-stop strategy as well, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that 24 might be there at the end.
I'm going to nail you on semantics, Jacob, because the Pro Series is the B car. eNASCAR, Coca-Cola, iRacing. eNASCAR, iRacing, Coca-Cola Series for Zach Novak. The top step of the esports ladder on the NASCAR side of things in the sim.
Well, we just had a lot of pit stops mess up our 10. We had a lot of movement of Colin Fambro up to the 3rd spot.
Yeah, we had Weishart come down and a bunch of others. You're right there, Harold.
But Conor O'Kresick disconnected from the server as well. So we talk about Michael Larch. He's back in the 4th spot position in the number 6 car. He guy that won last week to get himself into the playoffs.
A little bit of left front damage on that number 6 as well. I'm not sure how much that hinders his race car. And rounding out our through the field, the 02 of Jordan Martin, now running in the 5th position with pit stop cycling through. Driver who's been quietly good this year, Jacob Bell, in that 02 car.
Yeah, he has been, and he's been getting better and better as well in that 02. And new paint scheme, he said. So I was interested to see what that looks like out here tonight in Atlanta, and also be joining us tomorrow night in the Cup Series race for the Sim Speed Shop Cup Series playoff opener.
Only one top 5 for Jordan Martin that he can boast, and that was at Talladega, where he finished 3rd. Outside of that, finishes a 15th or worse in the 5 starts he's made this season.
So it's so far cycled Nick Trader to the lead. Right now, he's got 28 laps on this set. So he's trying to split the distance. He'll be down in the next 2 laps.
And that will end up releasing Cameron Hearn into the lead for potentially the final 30 laps of the race. If we track the progress, David Weishart made his pit stop while we were going through the field with you. Weishart is currently 9th, 22 seconds behind the leader with 30 laps remaining. Jacob Bell, can he make up just under a second a lap?
I don't know. I think the pit stops ended up being so close in terms of laps. I'm not exactly sure what the number was that Weishart pitted in comparison to Cameron Hearn, but a difference might not be enough for that tire advantage to really take place.
17 seconds between Cameron Hearn and David Weishart.
So Weishart closing the gap. Oh, excuse me. You are correct. I totaled that one off of Nicholas Trader, who has yet to make a pit stop. Yes. Right. Yep. Thank you for that.
And we saw the tire fall off could be as far as 2 seconds per lap. You know, that means he's up there within a handful of laps, 10 laps.
This is passes for position right here for David Weishart. He's going to get by Alan Elwood and Shane Theron, who are on the two-stop strategy. So move Weishart to the 7th position currently. And he's got Chris Seidenfeld, another two-stop driver, just ahead of him. So it's looking pretty good right now for the number 2 Sim Speed Shop Chevrolet Camaro. He also worked by the 0-2 of Jordan Martin, who has yet to make his final pit stop.
He's got
now 10, Weishart to 5th position.
He's got 10 laps fresher tires than Cameron Hearn right now.
Now needing to make up 16 seconds on the 15. Half a second a lap if he keeps it under a normal pace.
He's right now 8/10 quicker than Cameron Hearn on the last lap.
And nothing's ever linear when it comes to tire fall off either.
No.
Lap times will plateau before too long. We'll continue to track the progress of the number 2. Another driver making a pit stop. A couple, right? Rick Christensen has chosen to retire from the race. Brian Dixon on pit road now for his final stop of the race. He is currently 4 laps down. Not a good night for the 33. The 6 of Michael Larch has now made his final stop, as well as Jordan Martin in the 0-2. They're pitting from inside the top 10. Leads just the top 8 on the lead lap from Nicholas Trader all the way back to Kyle Sieg. Sieg on the same tire strategy as David Weishart. He just didn't quite have the same amount of time made up on the front end of the run. He's about 10 seconds behind Weishart. Weishart now trailing Cameron Hearn by 14 seconds. While we have another lull in the racing action, one more shout out for us tonight, Sim Speed Shop. Thank you to Sim Speed Shop for their support of the Sim Speed Shop Cup Series every Thursday night here on the Area iRacing Leagues and the Area iRacing Twitch channel. Sim Racers, be sure to visit their website, www.simspeedshop.com, to find all the items you need to finish your virtual racing setups, such as button boxes, racing wheels, peripheral gear, and more. Once again, that is www.simspeedshop.com for all your sim racing gear needs. Special thank you to Sim Speed Shop for their support of us here at Area iRacing, and especially the Sim Speed Shop Cup Series every Thursday night here on the Area iRacing Twitch channel. Cleaning up one black flag being served right now for Brian Dixon. Too fast entering on that pit stop that he made. Cameron Hearn working by some lap traffic here. The 84 of Forrest Smith, who's not had the best of nights. Got in the wall in 3 and 4 some 25 laps ago. Nicholas Trader getting past for the lead through that as well, but Trader does need to make one more pit stop. At this point, he's hoping for a yellow, Jacob Bell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if he's necessarily alone, because those guys that Weishart passed as well that are on the same two-stop strategy as Cameron Hearn, like Chris Seidenfeld and those guys, they probably wouldn't mind a caution either to get a chance to put on those fresh tires and get right back around a few guys that are already taking their final set. So it's definitely a little nerve-wracking feeling right now if you're in the 3-stop camp and you got 22 laps to go here and you've already used up all your tires.
Absolutely not wanting to see a yellow are a few of those drivers. And something else I just noticed, Jacob, you mentioned earlier on in the race that 4 out of the top 10 were not playoff drivers. Only Colin Fambro, the only driver not a playoff driver in the top 10 currently at crunch time in the race.
Well, There's a reason those playoff drivers are playoff drivers, and like you said, crunch time when it matters most. Look who's in the top 10.
That hurts.
21. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that hurts Ed Robertson the most with all those drivers in the top 10.
Absolutely. The driver that got damaged early on and had to retire from the session, as well as also Garrett Grant, who has made his final pit stop, we believe.
Garrett Grant's in the 10th spot. It's not going to hurt. I mean, it's going to hurt a little, but not nearly as bad as getting off in the 21st position.
Actually, you know what, Harold? Looking at his last pit stop on the number 5, it was 27 laps ago, and with 20 to go, it means he's got to go 47 laps on a stint. That's going to be really stretching his fuel.
He's already lapped down, so it'd be 46 laps technically. Not sure. I mean, he's going to try to. He's going to have to hope for a yellow to come out or try to limp that thing across the finish line to get some points that he definitely needs to get in a position to be viable for Richmond next week, as he's just got passed by Travis Beckner.
Nicholas Trader finally had to make his pit stop. So the yellow not coming at the best of times for the 56. If we're going to see a late race yellow.
I'm curious with Trader's strategy now because he's got, 18 lap old tires to the end of the race versus some of these guys who are going to be on 30 plus. So if that caution does come out, I don't think it necessarily does put Trader in the worst of situations as compared to those guys who have already made their final stop about 20 laps earlier.
Certainly takes him out of the race for the win.
Yes, I agree with that for sure. But ultimately, if that caution flies, it's going to take a lot of people out of the race for the win that are kind of thinking they might still have a chance. And Weishart's closed that gap a little bit, Eric.
8.4 seconds now between David Weishart and your leader, Cameron Hearn, with just inside of 18 laps to go. Cameron Hearn works his way off of turn number 2. Excuse me, just inside 17 to go. Last time by the start-finish line, lap times for your drivers. Cameron Hearn right here running a 33.11. David Weishart's last lap was a 32.81, so he has plateaued a bit. 32.95 this time by 96 for David Weishart. Only a difference of 0.2 of a second, Jacob Bell. That's a lot of ground to make up with only gaining 0.2 of a second a lap, with 8 seconds remaining between the two drivers.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about when I noticed Weishart made his final stop. I just felt like it was a little bit too close to when Cameron Hearn made his final stop, that the tires would eventually plateau, like you mentioned, and I think that's what we're starting to see.
Andrew Player attempting to stay on the lead lap right ahead of our leader.
It'll be a big,
Player's tires 10 laps fresher as well.
It'll be a big night for Andrew Player, being he just got himself into the playoffs. Could put him above the cut line after tonight by keeping an eighth place finish currently, and he might be get 1 or 2 as well. But he said that he got some extra coaching. He might need to go back for that for Richmond.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the other thing is he's not alone. There's a lot of those guys that are on the back half of the playoff field that have had a good night tonight. And it was those guys that were around that 5th, that 2nd to 9th bubble guys that we were talking about in the pre-race that you couldn't afford an issue. And we saw it happen to Ed Robertson. I don't know if it was necessarily his control. It looked like it was a connection dropping out, but still, just those mistakes are really going to add up.
Cameron, once he crosses the line here, will have 12 laps to go. He's just on the backstretch. Weishart needs to make up about a second per lap if he's going to be there, and that's not even to make the pass. That's just to get to the bumper.
He got close. He was 0.4 of a second difference between he and Cameron Hearn the last time by the line. Now 12 laps remaining in the playoff opener here at the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. for the inaugural season of the Area Lodgebox Series. The driver who's won 5 times already this season through the regular season out front yet again. Meanwhile, a new driver on the scene, Colin Fambro, putting in a very solid run, currently sitting in second.
And he's 0.3 faster than race leader Cameron Hearn right now with only a 5-second gap.
Just don't know that he has enough time. Either driver has enough time to try to make up the difference. Last time by, Fambro actually faster than David Weishart. We pick up a battle for 5th place going on here. Shane Theron is getting caught by Kyle C. Kyle was able to work himself past Alan Elwood. Fresher tires on that 39 machine, Jacob Bell.
Yeah, and it's about that right part of the run where those tires really come into play, and it's about making moves, making up that ground, and seeing what Kyle C can do here with the 38 of Shane Theron with 10 laps to go now.
Dean Gagliano too fast exiting for the 34 is going to have to serve a pass-through penalty. So on super old tires here, he's got to make up some ground. I just heard a motor go, guys. I'm not sure who it was. Might have been the 34.
It's a possibility because he was way slow when he got on the pit lane, but he's definitely hurting on that car.
He's actually rolling down pit road. Oh, no, excuse me. My timing is all messed up. It said he was rolling down pit road at 13 miles per hour there for a solid 30 seconds.
He's in his box right now. Been there for a little while. 39 seconds to be exact, and it's still climbing.
Might have been the 19 who's sitting on pit road,
he's been on
his car.
He's been on there for 14 minutes.
He may have lost the motor. He may have been the one I heard.
Oh, okay. He's been there a long time.
Actually, indeed, it was the 19. He is now being shown a meatball flag on the sim. So he left his car running while sitting in his pit stall, and the motor has expired on the 19.
Interesting.
Already out of the race, 29 laps down. Meanwhile, inside of 10 to go, now 6-5 coming up for Cameron Hearn.
Look at the 5 to go marker here as Cameron Hearn comes off the banking off turn number 4 back to the flag man. Unless something changes, Cameron's going to just walk into victory lane with a donut and a coffee. Maybe the newspaper.
I mean, even if the caution does come out, Harold, though, he's got that extra set that a lot of these guys don't either.
That's correct.
I tell you what, though, Colin Fambro is attempting to cut the gap down. Was well over 5 seconds. Now inside that 5-second mark, down to 4.5. Almost to 4 seconds. He just does not have enough time. It's a matter of whether Cameron Hearn can also make it to the finish, because they will be cutting it close on fuel. 4 to go.
Well, Cameron Hearn last time pitted on lap 44. He needs to get to lap 44.
Of the stint.
Correct.
Well past lap 44 in the race.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I'm talking by stint numbers here.
Not to confuse
our fans,
anyone just joining the broadcast. If you've just now joined us, you've missed out on quite a race so far. no yellow flags.
Up
Looking
there.
like green wire to wire.
Now,
And
now you
a
just
very
said that.
split strategy.
Now that you said that,
I mean, it would certainly be good for entertainment. I will not discount that factor. But as a racer at heart, I would not want to see a yellow flag here.
well, he's going to get the 2 to go here. And once he passes the white, it will end the race. There will be no yellow thrown after that. So 2 to go right now. Next time by, Cameron Hearn will see the final flag before the checkered.
So long as a yellow doesn't come out on this lap. Turn off of turn 2, down the back straightaway, chasing 2 cars that have unfortunately not had good nights. Andrew Player maintaining the lead lap at the moment, just ahead of the leader. Forrest Smith, some contact with the wall earlier in the race, has seen him 1 lap down, almost 2 laps down. White flag in the air, 1 to go. Presented by 1 to Go Studios for Cameron Hearn. And Jacob, the two-stop strategy is looking like it's about to pay off.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, one of the best guys on 1.5 miles this season in the Lodgebox series. We come to Atlanta, playoff race number 1. No surprise to see the 15 out front.
He's a 5-time winner this season. He's about to stamp win number 6 in the books. Cameron Hearn, off of turn 4, wins the opening round of the Lodgebox Series playoff and punches his ticket to the round of 8. Colin Fambro slides through in 2nd. David Weishart in 3rd. Across the line for 4th will come Chris Seidenfaden in 5th place. Goes to Shane Theron over Kyle Sieg. Alan Elwood home in 7th. Nicholas Trader making a late pass on Andrew Player for the 8th position. Player demoted to 9th. He will be the last one to cross the line on the lead lap. But it's Cameron Hearn in the 15, now winning half the races so far this season. The 15 finds victory lane once more, this time at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Post-race interviews and post-race coverage coming up here on the Area iRacing Twitch channel. Coverage brought to you by 1 to Go Studios. Special thank you to 1 to Go Studios for their support of bringing you all great pictures week in and week out here on the Twitch channel. And while we have a moment, fans, be sure, if you want to see an ad-free viewing experience, make sure you hit that subscribe button there in the bottom right to catch all the action, even under green flags. Avoid the advertisement breaks by hitting that subscribe button. Cameron Hearn famously taking the Alan Kawicki victory lap, something that Alan did here at Atlanta before, including that famous championship win for the driver owner back in the 90s. We'll get the chance to speak with Cameron Hearn in a few moments' time, as well as Colin Fambro and David Weishart. Let Cameron finish up his burnout here as he spins across the start-finish line. A winning moment here in the Area iRacing League. Winning moment number 6 for Cameron Hearn this season. My broadcast partner, Jacob Bell, I believe, has finally got himself down from the booth to the start-finish line. He'll catch up with our winner, Cameron Hearn.
Absolutely, Cameron. You get it done. Playoff race number 1 in the Lodgebox series, but you get your 6th victory of the season tonight at Atlanta. Your strategy played off. Were you nervous there at the end, thinking you had enough fuel?
Yeah, I was saving pretty hard. I honestly was saving tires the first run, and they pitted so early, it kind of surprised me. And I was like, well, I waited 5 laps. I think Nick Trader kind of pitted in between the 2-stop and 3-stop run. I don't want to be caught in the middle, and I didn't know if I'd make it on fuel, but I decided pretty comfortable into the chase. Anything could happen. I could have 2 or 3 bad races in a row, knock me out, but I decided I'll try to save it on fuel. And the second run I really saved. Then the third run, David pitted so fast after I did that I felt like he would kind of get like a wall where our tires are pretty much even. With me saving fuel, I really wasn't killing my right front or right rear that much.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were also talking about up here in the broadcast booth watching that as well. But you talked about, your playoff positioning for this series. You had 5 wins in the regular season. You won the regular season championship. So a bunch of playoff points, and you just added to it tonight, and you lock yourself into the round of 8. So really, you got the next race off, and then you got 2 more races that separate you from Phoenix. What's your goal there? And are you trying to get that championship for Infinite Gaming in the Lodgebox series? Or what do you think the season could end up like for the 15?
Yeah, I think everyone makes the playoffs. Their goal is to win the championship. Anything else is not good enough, and that's their goal for Infinite, is to bring home the championship. And like tonight, when I was at VRA, fuel strategy was kind of and tires was kind of a strategy that we used in the Xfinity and even in the Cup Series. And Rick had some issues with some pit road penalties and stuff, so he was helping me at the end in terms of where I'm at on pace wise, where Colin was at and where David was at. And then with about 5 to go, Rick said, "All right, we're good on fuel. You can pretty much do what you want to do." And appreciate him coming in there and helping me. But that's what it's all about, and that's what's one of the benefits of being on a good team.
Well, absolutely. You mentioned Infinite and your teammates there. Is there any other shout outs you want to give before we let you go celebrate this win tonight?
Yeah, give a shout out for you guys for the broadcast. A Lodgebox, Sim Speed Shop, Northern Capital, Swift Lifestyles, all the sponsors. I say this every week, but there's a lot of talent in this league. So winning here is, I've had a lot of the luck kind of turn my way. A caution could have came out, or could have been trapped a lap down potentially maybe tonight. If things have worked my way, but things worked my way again. It's all about putting yourself in position and letting things happen on the track. And I appreciate the caution free race. That speaks to the class of drivers and the skill we have out here, because you got guys battling for playoffs and guys trying to make it to the next cut line. So just a shout out to all the drivers, all the admins behind the scene who put in their time watching us and going back and doing the tough job of making calls. And just appreciate everybody that puts in the work.
Well, before we let you get out of here, just how much of a relief is it to be risk-free going the rest of the way to the championship?
It is awesome. It honestly lets you do a little bit of strategy. Maybe if I was 2 laps short, right? If it was, since I'm locked in, next race I could try to stretch it 2 more laps, so that's huge. I also want to give a shout out to my dad, who watches every race. And when I do bad, it's like, what happened? So I appreciate that. My wife's watching tonight. She already texted me, so that's awesome. And that's what it's all about, is going out here, putting on a good show. And you guys do a great show with the broadcast. And like I said, I appreciate everything you guys do. The best broadcast I've ever been involved when I've been racing on Irison for 10 years. So I appreciate it.
Alrighty, well, that is our winner, Cameron Hearn. He is risk carefree going into the rest of the races before he reaches the championship 4 potentially in just a few weeks' time. Meanwhile, Harold Darner is getting the opportunity to catch up with our second place finisher, Colin Fambro.
Colin Fambro, you're up in the booth with Eric and Jake. You got that 24 Coors Light Xfinity car into the second spot. You guys were working fuel strategy. You led a few laps. Camera was just outside of your view. Tell us about your last few laps, man.
Yeah, I mean, I crossed the finish line with 0.2 of a gallon. I'm not sure how you pit before me and save that much, but I mean, kudos to him for figuring that out. I guess I need to head back to the shop this week and kick my engineers in the ass a little bit.
Oh, yes, I looked at your thing, and the number of laps that I was calculating had you right on the numbers and Cameron a lap short. He must have got behind some people and figured out a way to save a little bit more than you did. Maybe he was clutching it. I didn't catch him doing that at all. But, you did get that 24 in a good spot. I mean, you're the only, I want to say he's one of the only, if he was not the, let me double check the results here, but I believe you're the only driver out of the top 10, you're the only driver not in the playoffs other than Martin. So it was a good job.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, it was a fun race. It's always great when you can go caution free. Um, it's a good group of guys here, and I've had a lot of fun the first 2-3 races, whatever, that I've been able to run. So, good run for us. We just need to do a little bit better next time.
Well, we got Richmond next week, and did you take some notes from this track? I know it's a short track we're going to next, but you said you only been here for a few weeks, so you hopefully you can get back with the team and figure out something to get you that little extra boost you need to get to the top spot.
Yeah, I mean, Richmond, you shouldn't have to worry about fuel at Richmond. So it'll just be who can go out there and get the job done. So Richmond's a great track, and look forward to that next week.
All right. And who do you want to thank before we let you go, man?
So I had a couple guys in my corner tonight. Chris and Zach Wright really helped call the race. Helped us out with strategy there, and just appreciate those guys for helping out.
All right, that was your second place finish for Colin Fambro. I believe we have Mr. Bell going to pick it up with David Weishart next.
I'll pick this one up, Harold.
Oh, okay.
I'll pick it up for you guys. David Weishart on the alternate strategy tonight. You come home in third. What more did you need on the 3-stop strategy to be able to get to Cameron Hearn?
I don't know. Just same thing earlier in the season. I don't know what I needed. So it's pretty disheartening to have about 12, 15 lap newer tires and somebody's clutching in front of you and you breaking even with them. So I don't know. Same thing that bit me earlier in the year. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, set yourself solidly in the playoffs positioning. Now sitting in second with 19 points trailing to Cameron Hearn, already himself locked in, but you have nice cushion of about 20 points to the cut line. How comfortable do you feel heading into Richmond next week?
I feel pretty good about it. Any buffer going into Richmond's going to be big. At 20 points, with the way these races are playing out. I feel pretty safe. I feel like I can go out there and have fun and maybe take a little bit of a risk, but can't take too big of a one because you get somebody that's below the cut line, they could potentially win the thing. So got to be careful with that, but overall, I feel pretty good about it.
Well, David, you ran well tonight, a third-place finish on the record, heading to Richmond, feeling pretty good. Who helps you make it feel so good week in and week out on that number 2 car?
Yep. Just want to thank Lodgebox for sponsoring the series and all my teammates back at Samson. Y'all for broadcasting, and I got to give a shout out to everybody watching. All these guys come out and race. It's a lot of fun to come out here and race these guys. It's been a long week for me. So to get back racing and get my mind off of things, I enjoyed it a lot.
That is our third-place finisher tonight, David Weishart. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Congratulations on the podium. We'll see you next week in Richmond.
Thanks, guys.
Of course, our thoughts with David as he goes through some tough times. We'll pick up our Lodgebox series final classifications for the playoff opener at the virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. Cameron Hearn, your winner by 5 seconds at the start-finish line over Colin Fambro, the only non-playoff driver in the top 9. David Weishart able to come home in third. Then the mix of 2 and 3 stop strategies begins big time with Chris Seidenfaden able to stay ahead of Shane Thieren for the 4th spot. Thieren in 5th. Sieg able to squeak out a 6th on the 3-stop strategy, chasing David Weishart down just a little bit behind him there at the end of the race. Alan Elwood able to come home in 7th with a great run. Nicholas Trader in the 8th position. Andrew Player, a great night for his points situation after barely squeaking into the playoffs last week at Charlotte, is able to come home with a top 10 finish, solidly in the points. Jordan Martin, your 10th place finisher, first car, 1 lap down.
11th place tonight. Last week's winner, Michael Larch. Travis Beckner brings it home in 12th. James Shaneworth, a little bit of a disappointing 13th place run tonight. Forrest Smith in 14th, and his teammate, Vern Hawkins, in 15th. Garrett Grant starts off the playoffs 16th, and unfortunate start to his playoffs as well. He had that spin early on in the race that kind of derailed his whole night. Dean Gagliano in 17th. Brian Dixon finishes 18th. Rick Christensen comes home 19th, and Connor Okresick in 20th.
And rounding out the field tonight in 21st, drivers that had a bad night. Ed Robertson with the packet loss disconnection in the race. Not a good night for his playoff hopes. James Scioli was running well until problems on his first pit stop saw him with a ton of damage and a night finished. Alan Ballacino in the 70 will close it out in 23rd, 105 laps down, retiring early on to the race due to some damage for that 70 car as well. Not a good night for drivers at the back part of the grid. But a good night for quite a few playoff drivers, as we see Weishart finishing there in third. Elwood Designs race recap for the Lodgebox Series playoff opener. Cameron Hearn, your winner, leading 52 laps en route to victory. No cautions, a green flag wire-to-wire race here in the Lodgebox Series. Not the first one we've had this season. Certainly won't be the last in the history of the series. 23 drivers made the field tonight. Fastest lap ended up going to Shane Theron on that final stint of the race, turning a 31.400 around this 1.54 worn out mile and a half quad oval. Get a chance to look at our playoff picture. Jacob Bell, Harold Darner doing some great work to get us this information. Sees Cameron Hearn locked into the next round. David Weishart solidly plus 20. That's plus 22 on the cut line. Meanwhile, that race for the last spot in Kyle Sieg, only 2 points above Andrew Player. Player got himself still in the hunt. Ed Robertson is going to have to dig out of a hole. He's now almost 10 points back heading into the final race of this round at Richmond next week. Harold, who do you see on here who's got the best chance below this cut line? Player, Grant, Shane Wolf, Robinson of making sure they can make the playoffs come next week.
I think Garrett Grant, he fought himself to keep him to a good points night, even though he's 2 laps down with a damaged race car. But I think Garrett can put himself around. He just needs to get that monkey off his back. Had a bad race last night as well.
See if he can turn it around at Richmond next week. Final few thoughts, Harold, from the race tonight and what we're expecting to see at the 3/4 mile short track next week.
Well, we have short track racing next week, which is something we haven't had a lot of. One of the things that the drivers continually talk about is the schedule that was created for the ARIA inaugural season. And we pretty much didn't do a lot of the duplicates. Matter of fact, this is probably the closest, other than Dover, Nashville, Charlotte to Atlanta, were like the only times we kind of had a comparable track to track. Other than that, we've been all over the place, going from roads to super speedways, intermediates. We've been bouncing everywhere, which is great. It really makes it so where the driver has to be an all-around driver, not just good in one type of track like a 1.5 or something.
Jacob Bell, we saw a flag-to-flag race here tonight at Atlanta. Can we really expect that at Richmond next week?
I don't think so. I think when we go to Richmond, isn't that the track name is like the track of excitement or something like that? So I think that's what we're going to get, and playoff lives are going to be on the line. So people are going to be scratching and clawing and doing everything they can to make it to the round of 8.
That's going to do it from us from here tonight at Atlanta for the Lodgebox Series playoff opener. Cameron Hearn, your winner tonight. Next week, 8:45 p.m. Eastern here on the Area iRacing Twitch channel. Next Wednesday night, you'll see coverage of the final race of round 1 of the Area Lodgebox Series playoffs coming from Richmond, where These drivers will see 165 laps on the 3/4 mile short track. If you still want to see more Atlanta action, make sure you tune in tomorrow night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, for the Simpson Beach Cup Series. They'll close out Atlanta week with their playoff opener. See who can catapult themselves up the order and who's going to fall down the order next week. Again, cover starting then, 8:45 p.m. Eastern. If you want to learn more about Area iRacing, go to areairacing.com to find all the information you need. If you want to see the points for each of the Area iRacing series, make sure to visit simracerhub.com. Special thank you to them for their work behind the scenes on that website, allowing leagues to utilize that website for point scoring, and especially the funkiness and the formatting for things such as playoffs and stage racing. So again, that's simracerhub.com. You can just search in the top of the screen for the Area iRacing series. For Jacob Bell and Harold Darner, I am Eric Wineland. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. That is going to close our coverage of the Lodgebox series. We will see you next week at Richmond. We'll see you tomorrow night here at Atlanta for Cup Series action. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We will see you all next time.
What an exciting race brought to you by Wendigo Studios. Here they come out of turn 4 to the white flag, and it's 1 to go. Thank you to all our sponsors, drivers, and viewers. We'll see you at the next turn.